Abdelaziz Bouteflika, 77 years old. He is the odds-on favorite to win re-election on Thursday. Last time around, he got 90% of the vote. Odds-on favorite, even though Algeria's president never once appeared on the campaign trail. He spent most of last year recovering from a stroke here in France. France, which is home to some 2 million Algerians, and where the voices of dissent are growing stronger and stronger.
This is the rally of shame. It's the rally of national treason.
Protesters gathered in front of a Paris hotel where supporters of the aging Algerian president were meeting. Abdelaziz Bouteflika is running for a fourth term. That's one too many for the opposition, which is calling for change.
We want to make our voices heard. We don't want this corrupt leadership. We don't want these elections that are bringing back and recycling a sick man. A man with a very negative record in power. Look at what they've done. There's absolutely nothing left.
Inside, there were a few hundred Bouteflika supporters and two of his ministers. As one of them was addressing the crowd, he was interrupted by protesters. The protest was short-lived as security quickly escorted them outside of the building. These young Algerians and Franco-Algerians set up their movement called Civil Action for Algeria back in February. They're still looking for office space, but their goal is to make an impact.
I realize this country deserves much more. It has wealth, it has everything. It has young people within reach, but they're all leaving the country.
Their movement is trying to mobilize all generations of Algerians in France and in Algeria in order to move forward.
For this awakening to happen, we have to call on all Algerians to get together and from there create an active civil society that will guarantee a democratic process. Then, existing political parties will have to bring an alternative. Only a constructive debate will allow us to build the Algeria of tomorrow.
The opposition knows it must unite. 4 parties have already joined forces to coordinate a national boycott campaign. They protest together and see themselves as an extension of their counterparts back in Algeria. But they want to take things further by teaming up with non-political organizations.
The reason we're insisting on civil society is that many Algerians don't belong to a political party. So, if there are well-known figures in this coordination, Algerians will want to join, and then we can make a difference.
On Saturday, members of the 4 parties protested outside polling stations as France's Algerians cast their ballots on the first day of early voting for their country's presidential elections.
France's Algerian community, as well as Algerians in Algeria, are protesting against this fourth term and voicing their desire for change. A change in the system, a radical and peaceful change that will establish the rule of law and protect people's freedoms.
We're here to reassure the people, to reject the system as a whole, with all its clans, because they all have the same goals. Our goal is to have a political transition and a real constitution that will give the Algerian people its sovereignty back.
Other groups gathered in front of the Algerian embassy in Paris, a protest organized by a brand new movement called Bara, which means out.
Activists in Algeria and France are here for a peaceful fight. It's all peaceful. We want to change things peacefully. We take to the streets peacefully. We're not vandals. We don't want to destabilize the country.
Salah Menia, the Masira group spokesperson, also joined the protest.
Refusing to follow the regime's schedule is the first step in mobilizing Algerians in Algeria and abroad. Members of the Algerian diaspora are deeply attached to their country, to the legacy of Algeria's struggles, and to what is going on in their country. We know that mobilizing and building alternatives are long-term battles.
Staging more protests, holding more meetings, and making their voices heard. Algeria's civil society abroad is developing the means to be more efficient and is determined to make things change. Their battle has just begun and will continue long after the April 17th election.
Well, that's the situation in Paris, where activists are trying to stir up opposition to Abdelaziz Bouteflika in his bid for a fourth term. Let's go to Algiers now, and France 24's Catherine Norris-Trent. Catherine, is there campaign fever on the eve of the vote?
Well, the opposition has been campaigning hard too, as has the camp of President Abdelaziz Bouteflika. All sides trying to mobilize support and trying to get the voters to come to the polls tomorrow for this election. People here are pretty sure, a lot of the people we've spoken to, that Bouteflika will win a fourth term in office. There doesn't seem much surprise or suspense around that, but there is a tension here. People really holding their breath. They don't know quite how it's going to pass off. There is a feeling that there has been change over the last 5 years, and this isn't the same scenario as the last presidential election in 2009, that somehow things are shifting, the balance of power is shifting behind the scenes, and that Abdelaziz Bouteflika, he's aging, he's visibly weak. There's been changes in the elite ranks in Algeria, and the main opposition candidate, Ali Ben Flies, has been managing to drum up quite a bit of support. So people pretty nervous, waiting to see how it passes off, and people here really hoping that it goes off peacefully. A lot of people very traumatized by the very long and bloody civil war Algeria went through in the 1990s, and really here what they want is stability.
We get a sense, seeing from that report, that the opposition in Algeria comes in various stripes. There's the opposition taking part in the election, and there's also others who are saying don't go to the polls.
Yes, that's right. 6 opposition parties, including the main Islamist parties, who are boycotting this vote, refusing to take part and give it legitimacy by participating. They say it's not a fair contest and that the system is very much weighted in favour of the president and the FLN, the ruling party. So they're not taking part. But the opposition as a whole is weak and has not managed to get a rallying force against the president and against the ruling party. We've also seen in recent months the birth of some civil society movements, protest movements, people coming to the streets to say that they don't believe Bouteflika should have a fourth term and that he's too old now and there should be some kind of political change. We need to point out that these movements are very nebulous, they're small, they only get a few hundred people out onto the streets at any one time, and that they're pretty quickly cleared away by Algerian security forces who are out on the streets in quite big numbers. So while we do see opposition and can hear opposition in the Algerian press, it's not a coherent, united voice.
Not a coherent voice, as you say, Catherine. When you look at the situation in Algeria, which many say the Arab Spring passed it by, yet we know there are protests, but they're more work-related, labor issues, not so much in the political arena.
Absolutely, and when there have been these protests, people protesting about living conditions, about unemployment, we have seen a government response quite quickly of them handing out more cash, basically. Some of the enormous reserves they have. Algeria has around $200 billion in reserves from its oil and gas exports, which are a big part of the economy. And back in 2011, when there were the so-called Arab Spring protests rocking other countries in the region, the Bouteflika government responded quickly by handing out huge swathes of cash to various sectors of society, trying to improve living conditions, to keep a lid on these protests. And that's a response we've seen a few times. So while seeing these movements, they're quickly pushed. They are springing up, though, in different parts of the country.
All right, Catherine Norris-Trent, I want to thank you for joining us. We'll be checking in with you, obviously, throughout the day on Election Day. And join us this Thursday for a special edition of the France 24 debate devoted to Algeria and what happens going forth with or without the aging and ailing Abdelaziz Bouteflika. Stay with us here on France 24. We'll have more news for you, plus the day's business and the final of the Spanish Cup. It's a Clásico, Barcelona against Real Madrid.